Hello, and welcome to TerraNash. I'm Aiden, your narrator for tonight. Let's take this time together to step away from the rush of the day and ease into a world of dreams and wonder. Tonight, I'll tell you a story. The Stolen Dragon's Egg. It's a gentle tale about a young dragon named Solen, who awakens to find that one of the precious eggs in his family's nest has vanished. Determined to recover it, he sets off through whispering forests and glowing valleys, meeting unexpected friends and uncovering a truth far softer and kinder than he could have imagined. What begins as a search for what's lost slowly becomes a journey of understanding, trust, and quiet courage. But before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? And what time is it as you settle in to hear this story? We'd also love to know what kinds of stories you'd enjoy next. Your thoughts and suggestions inspire us, so please share them in the comments below. If you'd like even more from us, you can check out our Patreon, where you'll gain early access to all our stories, as well as a curated Spotify playlist to help you rest. And if these bedtime stories have been a gentle pause in your nights, subscribing is the simplest way to support us. It means the world to us, and it helps us keep this space soft and sacred for dreamers like you. Now, let your eyes grow heavy. Let your breath slow, steady, and soft. Let the weight of the day melt from your shoulders, and the hush of night wrap gently around you. The stars are out. The mountains are watching, and somewhere beneath the clouds, a dragon takes his first step into the unknown. Close your eyes and let the story begin. The sun had only just begun to warm the tips of the mountain peaks, casting long golden streaks across the valley below. A soft wind wove through the clouds, carrying with it the scent of pine, wildflowers, and something else, something unusual. Solen, a young dragon with silver blue scales and wings light as morning mist, stirred from his slumber beneath the protective stone arch of his family's nesting ground. His eyes, still heavy with sleep, scanned the curved nest that cradled the sacred eggs. 4 smooth, speckled shells nestled close together. But something felt wrong. He blinked once, then again, and sat up straighter. There were only 3. Solen's heart gave a quiet jolt. One of the eggs, his favorite, the one flecked with golden swirls like sunlit honey, was missing. He stepped gently around the others, careful not to wake them. The nest was undisturbed. No claw marks, no shattered shell, just a faint glimmer of something in the air. Dust, soft and luminous, like powdered moonlight, drifting toward the edge of the ridge and into the clouds. A whisper touched his ears, though no one had spoken. It felt like memory, like motion, like a breath of something being carried far, far away. Solen looked back at the sleeping elders, then at the fading trail of light. He didn't hesitate. With a single beat of his wings, quiet and sure, he lifted into the sky. The morning wind welcomed him, cool and kind. Below, the world was still wrapped in early haze. Ahead, the glittering trail danced between trees and ridges, disappearing into the depths of the forest below. Solen flew low, his body gliding between branches and over streams. He didn't know who had taken the egg, or why. But he did know one thing. He wouldn't rest until it was safe again. The golden flecks in the air led him gently forward, like stardust from a dream. And far below, the forest stirred softly, as if waiting for him. He didn't know it yet, but this journey would be more than a search. It would be a beginning, and the wind, always listening, carried him onward. The forest welcomed Solen with open branches, the morning light slipping through leaves like slow falling silk. He glided between tall trunks and curling vines, following the delicate trail of shimmering dust. It drifted gently ahead of him, fading in places, then reappearing like a whispered invitation. Soon, the trees began to change. Their bark darkened to deep browns streaked with green, and their leaves shimmered faintly, almost as if they were made of glass. The wind hushed as he entered a circular clearing where the trees grew in perfect formation. Each one leaned inward, their branches touching just enough to weave a living canopy overhead. The light here was soft and golden, filtered through 1,000 tiny leaves that rustled without breeze. Solen landed quietly and looked around. The glittering trail had ended here, settling gently among fallen leaves. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the trees began to murmur. Their leaves shifted and whispered, not in words exactly, but in a voice that rustled with memory. It was like listening to a dream you'd once had as a child and nearly forgotten. From one of the highest branches, a figure fluttered down, a pale owl with feathers like parchment and eyes full of twilight. She landed on a mossy rock in the center of the grove and regarded Solen with a calm, curious gaze. "You're looking for the golden egg," she said softly, her voice like a page being turned. "It passed through here." Solen's wings folded at his sides. "Do you know who took it?" The owl tilted her head. "It wasn't taken. Not in the way you think. It was carried, carefully, gently, by paws that meant no harm." Solen blinked. Why? Who would take it if not to steal it? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked up, and the canopy rustled louder, the leaves shimmering with layered voices, echoes of past visitors, ancient conversations, and questions once asked beneath this very bough. "The forest listens, little dragon," she said, "and sometimes it answers. Not all who take do so to harm. Some carry because they must." Solen's chest tightened with confusion. "Then, should I still follow?" The owl's eyes softened. "You're not just following an egg. You're following a story, and it hasn't finished telling itself yet." She plucked a single leaf from the air and handed it to him. It was small, heart-shaped, and glowed faintly with silver-green light. "Keep this," she said. "If you ever forget why you began, let it remind you." Solen tucked the leaf gently beneath the clasp of his satchel. He bowed his head in thanks. The owl took flight once more, returning to the trees. As her wings disappeared into the canopy, the grove fell silent again, but not empty. The trail ahead was no longer visible, but Solen knew where to go now. The whispers of the leaves had shifted something inside him, softened the edges of his fear. With a quiet breath, he stepped beyond the grove, deeper into the forest, carrying the leaf, and a little more understanding than before. As the forest deepened, the trees began to stretch taller and lean further, their roots twisting like slow rivers beneath the moss. Solen followed the faint impressions of movement, a bend in the grass here, a paw print softened by rain there. Though the shimmer of the dust trail had faded, his senses stayed alert, attuned to every whisper in the leaves and shadow. By midday, he reached a quiet clearing beside a winding river. A great willow tree stood near the edge, its long branches hanging like curtains of silk, swaying gently in the breeze. The river's voice was calm and low, murmuring to the roots below. There, beneath the willow's veil, sat a fox. Her fur was a pale russet, streaked with silver, and her tail lay curled neatly beside her, like a comma in a story still being told. Her eyes, half-lidded, opened as Solen approached. She didn't seem startled. In fact, it felt as though she'd been waiting. "You've come far, little wing," she said in a voice like warm tea. "I wondered when you'd arrive." Solen tilted his head. "How did you know I was coming?" The fox smiled. "The wind told me, and the trees, and perhaps I've seen you before, in some dream long ago." He stepped closer, sensing no danger. "You know about the egg?" She nodded. "I saw it, pass through here at dawn, wrapped in cloth, tucked against a creature's chest, like something beloved. It wasn't running. It was guarding." Solen sat down quietly beside the willow, its long branches swaying above them. "I don't understand," he said. Why would someone protect it and still not return it? The fox's gaze softened. Sometimes returning something too soon means returning it to danger. Solen's eyes widened slightly. Danger? But our mountain is safe. The fox only gave him a long, knowing look. Let me offer you a riddle, she said. You don't have to solve it now, but let it travel with you. She stood, turned slowly, and spoke. What is taken, but not lost, guarded, though not owned, and finds its way home only after being let go. Then she returned to her spot and lay back down, resting her head on her paws. Solen repeated the riddle softly. Taken, but not lost, guarded, though not owned. The words curled into his thoughts like mist, lingering without urgency. He stood and bowed gently to the fox. Thank you, he said. She opened one eye and smiled. Keep listening. The forest speaks in more than words. As Solen turned to leave, the willow's branches lifted slightly, as if making space for him to pass. The river's current hummed a slow tune, and he followed it, heart full of questions, the fox's riddle echoing quietly inside. He no longer chased a thief. He was searching for a reason, and that made all the difference. Evening came gently, draping the forest in lavender light and cooling the air with the scent of moss and falling water. Solen walked softly now, his wings tucked close to his sides, paws sinking into leaf-covered paths. He hadn't seen the trail of golden dust for some time, yet he didn't feel lost. The grove had taught him to listen. The fox had taught him to wonder, and something inside him whispered he was still moving in the right direction. As twilight deepened, a soft flicker of gold began to dance through the trees. First one, then another. Soon, dozens of tiny lights floated around him. Fireflies, blinking gently in the hush of evening. He followed them. They led him to the edge of a quiet ravine. There, spanning from one side to the other, was an old wooden bridge, its planks weathered and wrapped in flowering vines. The fireflies gathered around it, their glow casting a warm, golden shimmer across the worn ropes and mossy beams. Solen stepped closer, the wood creaking softly under his claws. He paused at the threshold. This wasn't just a bridge. It felt like a memory, a place long forgotten, now waking just for him. A soft voice drifted from the other side. Careful steps, gentle wings. The bridge remembers. Perched on a stone, just beyond the far end of the bridge, was a hedgehog. He wore a woven satchel across his back and a little acorn cap on his head, tilted slightly to one side. I don't usually see dragons here, the hedgehog said, with a sleepy smile. You're following something, aren't you? Solen nodded. A stolen egg, though now I'm not so sure it was stolen at all. The hedgehog plucked a tiny lute from his side and strummed a few notes. "I know a story like that," he said. "Would you like to hear?" Solen stepped onto the bridge, walking slowly, the fireflies parting around him like falling stars. As he crossed, the hedgehog played. The tune was soft and slow, like water over stones, and the words came like a lullaby. There once was a flame in a cradle of stone, taken by paws, but never alone. It wasn't for stealing or hiding away, but saving from fire at the break of day. Solen reached the end of the bridge, heart stilling with the final note. "That song," he whispered. "It feels familiar." "Sometimes songs find us before their meaning does," the hedgehog said, tucking the lute away. Solen looked back across the bridge, the fireflies still blinking softly. "Why does it feel like everything I thought I knew is shifting?" he asked. The hedgehog smiled. "Because you're listening now." He offered Solen a small, folded piece of bark etched with simple patterns. "An old charm for safe passage," he explained. Solen tucked it beside the leaf from the grove and the riddle from the willow. He looked ahead. The night was growing darker, but the forest didn't feel lonely. It felt alive, watchful, guiding. With a gentle nod, he continued on. And behind him, the bridge held its breath once more, the fireflies blinking softly like stars, remembering an old, nearly forgotten dream. Night draped itself fully over the forest now, soft and blue, with stars blinking through the canopy like gentle eyes. Solen flew quietly, his wings brushing the cool night air. The charm from the hedgehog tied near his satchel, fluttering with each beat. Below, the trees grew thinner, the earth rising in gentle swells. Ahead, a dark ridge loomed, tall, rocky, and veiled in mist. This was the Mountain of Echoes, a place whispered about in the old stories. It was said to hold no beasts or danger, only voices, not the kind spoken aloud, but the kind that lived inside you. The thoughts you tried not to think, the fears you tried to forget. Solen landed near the base, the wind still and silent. No trail of dust, no sign of paw prints, just the hush of the mountain, waiting. He stepped forward. As he climbed, the path twisted between jagged stone and low-growing brush. The stars above seemed to fade, and the mist grew thicker, curling around his claws and wings like breath. Then it began, a voice, faint but familiar. "You were too slow." Solen froze. The voice was his own, but not from now, from a memory, You should have guarded the egg better." He turned quickly. No one there. Just mist and shadow. He kept walking. What if it breaks? What if you're not strong enough? What if it's your fault? The mountain was quiet, yet full of sound. His own doubts, rising like fog from the stone. Each step grew heavier, not from the climb, but from the weight of fear pressing in from all sides. Solen stopped near a curved stone arch, panting softly. He closed his eyes. He remembered the grove, the owl's leaf. He remembered the fox's riddle and the hedgehog's song. He remembered how the egg had been carried, not dropped. How everyone who had spoken of it spoke with care, not blame. He placed a paw over his chest and whispered, "I was afraid, but I kept going." The mist shifted. The voices softened. Then another sound rose, a new one. Not doubt, not fear. Hope. It came like the wind through leaves, a soft breath, a promise. And then silence, but not empty, peaceful. The mist began to clear, revealing a narrow path that twisted around the ridge and down the other side. The stars blinked back into view. Solen took one last look at the mountain behind him. He had climbed not to conquer, but to listen. And in listening, he had heard something far more important than blame. He had heard himself. He spread his wings and glided down the path, heart lighter, breath steady. The egg was still out there, but so was the reason it had been taken, and he was ready to find both. The wind had changed. As Solen descended the far side of the Mountain of Echoes, the air grew warmer, dry and sharp, carrying with it the faint scent of char. He paused at a bend in the path and sniffed the breeze. It wasn't fresh fire. It was something older, faded, but lingering. The kind of scent that told a story without speaking. Ash. He flew lower, gliding gently toward the valley below. The trees there were sparser, the ground drier. As he neared, the full picture came into view. A stretch of the forest, blackened and broken. Scorched trunks leaned in silence, and the undergrowth was gone, replaced by charred earth and fallen branches. Solen landed softly at the edge of the burn. Here, everything was still. The quiet was deeper, almost reverent. He stepped carefully across the soot, each footprint a soft mark in the powdery dust. The fire had passed through days ago, maybe more, but its story remained etched in every tree it had touched, and then he saw it. Faint impressions in the ash, small paw prints moving carefully between fallen limbs, not hurried, not wild, purposeful, protective. He followed. The trail led to the edge of the burned stretch, where green began again, new shoots pushing up defiantly between scorched roots. And just beyond that, nestled between two large rocks, was something he hadn't expected. A blanket, woven of moss, bark, and dried leaves, tucked into the curve of the stone. Inside, a scattering of soft down, too fine to be fur, too large to be bird. It was a nest, temporary, hidden, and empty. But he knew, without a doubt, the egg had been here. He sat beside it, his chest full of quiet understanding. The egg hadn't been stolen. It had been saved. Solen thought back to that morning when he'd first seen the empty nest. He had assumed the worst. But someone had seen the fire before he did. Someone had acted. While he slept beneath stone, trusting the mountain to be safe, another creature had carried the egg away, through forest and flame, to protect it. And they hadn't done it for glory. They'd done it quietly, carefully, alone. His eyes stung, though not from the ash. He looked up at the sky. It was soft with clouds now, streaked with fading sunlight. The wind rustled gently through nearby leaves, almost like a sigh. Solen reached into his satchel and touched the owl's leaf, the fox's riddle, the hedgehog's charm. Each one now felt heavier with meaning. He rose slowly. The egg was near. He could feel it, not just in his bones, but in the quiet pull of everything the forest had whispered to him along the way. He wasn't chasing anymore. He was arriving. And just ahead, the trees parted to reveal a faint trail leading into a hill's base where fire could never reach. A burrow, hidden, safe, and within, the next chapter waiting. The entrance to the burrow was tucked into the slope of a grassy hill, half hidden by ferns and low-growing vines. It would have been easy to miss, just another shadow in the twilight. But Solen felt it, like a quiet heartbeat beneath the earth. The scent of ash was gone now, replaced by something warm and earthy, like dry moss and old roots. He stepped closer. The hill breathed calm. No danger here. Just stillness. Just care. With a soft breath, Solen lowered his head and entered. Inside, the burrow opened into a wide chamber, dimly lit by glowing stones embedded in the walls. The air was warm, and the floor was lined with layers of woven grass, dried petals, and soft bark. At the center, resting inside a shallow cradle of moss, was the egg, whole, unharmed, wrapped in gentle cloth, and glowing faintly, just as it had on the day it vanished. Solen's chest swelled, not with relief, but something deeper. Gratitude. reverence. He stepped closer, moving slowly, until he was close enough to hear the faintest thrum of life from within the shell. Then he heard a voice. "I thought someone would come," it said gently. From the far side of the chamber, a figure emerged. A badger, older than most, her fur streaked with white and grey. Her eyes were soft and tired, but kind. "I didn't mean to cause worry," she said. "I saw the fire coming days before it reached your mountain. There was no time to explain, no one to tell. I only knew I had to act." Solen didn't speak right away. He just looked at her, at the deep lines in her face, the gentle slowness of her movements, the steadiness in her voice. She hadn't taken the egg for herself. She had carried it across fire, through forest, beneath stars. Not for reward, not for thanks, simply because she couldn't bear to see it lost. "You saved it," Solen finally said, his voice soft as breath. "I only carried it," she replied. "The forest saved it. The river cooled it. The fireflies guided me at night. The trees hid me when I needed rest. I wasn't alone." Solen lowered his head in a quiet bow. "Neither am I." They stood in silence for a moment, the egg resting between them. Then the badger smiled and gestured gently with her paw. "Go to it," she said. "It's been waiting." Solen stepped forward and curled himself around the egg, his warm breath settling softly against the shell. He placed his paw over its curve, feeling its steady pulse, the quiet thrum of life within. And then, just as the stars outside blinked into full view, he felt it move. A tremble, a shift. The shell began to crack. The badger whispered, "It's time." Solen's eyes filled with tears, but he did not cry. He only watched, quietly, as the egg he had chased through forest and fear, through riddles and mist, began to hatch in the peace of the one place it had always been meant to rest. Safe, warm, and held by love. The burrow glowed softly around them. Outside, the stars sang their silent lullaby, and inside, a new story began. The chamber was hushed, wrapped in the quiet awe that only surrounds a beginning. Solen lay curled around the egg, his breath slow and warm, his body shielding it from the chill of night. Beside him, the old badger, Noma, watched with calm eyes, her paws folded neatly in her lap. The egg trembled again, this time more firmly. A small crack formed at the top, thin, delicate, like a line drawn by light itself. Solen held his breath. The moment was both ancient and brand new. All the journeys, all the voices and signs had led here. Another crack, then a soft, muffled tapping. The egg rocked gently in the nest of moss, each movement like the heartbeat of something sacred. Solen moved aside just enough to give space, but stayed close, his warmth and scent grounding the fragile life inside. "You've done well," Noma said in a whisper, as if loud words might startle the moment. "Not just in finding it, but in learning how to wait for it." Solen glanced at her. "I thought I was searching for what was mine, but now I think I was being led to what needed me." The egg gave one final tremble. Then, with a soft, satisfying crack, the shell split open. A tiny snout appeared first, scaled, soft, and wet with birth. Then two delicate wings unfolded, shimmering faintly like dew-covered petals. The hatchling blinked slowly, its eyes cloudy at first, then clearer with each breath. It looked up at Solen, and for the first time, Solen understood the weight of what he'd been carrying. Not an egg, but a future. Not a task, but a bond. The hatchling chirped, a high, soft sound like wind through young leaves. Solen lowered his head and gently nuzzled it, a low, soothing hum rising from his chest. "You're safe," he whispered. "You're home." The little one curled against his side, its breathing already matching his, steady and slow. Noma rose and began to tidy the nesting moss around them, careful not to disturb the new pair. "I'll leave you both to rest," she said, stepping softly toward the mouth of the tunnel. "The forest watches, and the stars remember." Solen nodded, his voice too full for words. He watched her silhouette disappear into the moonlight beyond. Then he lowered his head beside the hatchling and let his eyes close. The journey no longer pulled at him. The forest no longer asked. Everything now was still. And in that stillness, wrapped in moss and starlight, a young dragon and his hatchling slept, cradled not just by earth and stone, but by every kindness, every lesson, and every gentle voice that had helped them arrive here. Not stolen, not lost, found. Morning light seeped into the burrow, soft and golden, spilling across the moss like a gentle tide. Solen stirred first, blinking slowly as the hush of night gave way to the quiet hum of dawn. Beside him, the hatchling still slept, its tiny wings twitching now and then, as if dreaming of flight before it had even tried. Noma had returned during the night and now sat near the entrance, quietly preparing a pouch of herbs and soft roots. When she noticed Solen awake, she offered him a warm smile. "The little one is strong," she said. "It will thrive, especially with you near." Solen nodded, his heart full. "Thank you for everything." Noma waved a paw softly. I only did what I hoped someone would do for me if I were ever in danger. That's all any of us can really offer. Care when it matters most. The hatchling yawned and stretched, its tiny claws flexing, its tail curling like a sprout reaching for sun. It blinked up at Solen with wide, trusting eyes. It was time. Solen wrapped the hatchling gently in a woven leaf sling Noma had prepared, securing it softly to his chest. The little one snuggled in without fuss, already knowing the rhythm of his breath. He stepped out of the burrow, the air cool and fresh. The hillside looked different now, less hidden, more like part of a path he had always meant to find. Noma followed him to the ridge. "The fire is behind you now," she said. "The rest of the forest will remember how you came through it." Solen looked back at her, his gaze soft. "Will we see you again?" Noma smiled, her eyes glinting with morning light. "You'll see me in the trees, in the rivers, in the quiet places where kindness lives." Then she turned and disappeared into the forest, just as quietly as she had appeared. Solen took flight. The wind lifted beneath his wings, strong and steady, and the forest spread out below him like a woven tapestry of green and gold. He passed over the grove of speaking leaves, now bathed in sunrise. He caught a glint from the bridge, where fireflies had once lit his path. And when he soared over the willow by the river, he thought, just for a moment, he saw the fox watching from beneath its swaying branches. The flight home was long, but it didn't feel it. Each wing beat was a thread, stitching together every step, every voice, every kindness along the way. When the mountain came into view, his chest warmed with recognition. The nest lay just as he had left it, waiting beneath the open sky. He landed gently, placing the hatchling into the cradle of woven reeds and feathers. The elders emerged from the stone arch, eyes wide, not with anger, but with wonder. No one spoke for a long time. There was no need. The sky above them stretched wide and blue, and the wind carried the scent of blooming things. And the mountain, once again, was whole. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden warmth over the mountain peaks, as if wrapping the world in a soft blanket of light. The nest, once missing a precious piece, now held more than it ever had before. Not just the returned egg, but a hatchling, breathing steadily, curled beside a gently humming Solen. The elders stood nearby, their eyes full of quiet pride. None asked for details. They had seen the truth in the way Solen carried himself. Lighter, wiser, changed. They understood, as the mountain did, that something had been lost and found in ways that could not be spoken, only felt. Over the next few days, the nest was rebuilt, not because it had crumbled, but because it had grown. Solen gathered new reeds, stronger and softer than before. Noma's leaf lining, carefully gifted, was woven into the cradle. The heart-shaped leaf from the owl's grove was placed gently beneath the hatchling's pillow. The fox's riddle, still unsolved, lived quietly in Solen's thoughts as he worked, shaping the nest with care not just for protection, but for welcome. Others came too. The owl flew in one misty morning, watching from a nearby branch. The hedgehog arrived at twilight with a soft hum on his lute, leaving behind a bundle of sweet roots and soft moss. Even the fireflies returned one evening, dancing above the nest like flickering stars come to visit. Pip, the hatchling, began to crawl, then stumble, then spread her tiny wings with trembling joy. Solen watched with steady eyes, guiding without pushing, offering space for her to discover the world at her own gentle pace. One night, as the stars shimmered above and the nest was quiet once more, Solen lay beside her and looked out at the sky. He thought of the fire, of the fear, of the journey, and he smiled, because the egg hadn't just returned to the nest. The nest had become something new, a circle not just of stone and straw, but of voices and kindness, of forest and flame, of trust that had been tested and grown. A nest rebuilt, not to hold what was once lost, but to welcome what had been found. And so, beneath a moon that watched like an old friend, Solen rested, his wings curled softly around the sleeping hatchling, the mountain quiet once more. Not because nothing would ever go wrong again, but because now he knew, even when the winds shift and the path twists through shadow, what is carried with care is never truly lost. And with that, the mountain breathed deep, and the story gently slept.